Hello, Jim Weaver here. I'm back with part 4, Qigong blog. And I wanted to talk a little bit about cosmology and philosophy that's involved in a lot of Qigong. It's important in the sense that it gives you the larger perspective of what you're dealing with and what you're tuning into. Now, a lot of times I'll talk to my students about this and explain that really you don't have to believe any of this stuff for the Qigong to work. It helps. It links you up with the sources of those energies and how we're connecting with them. But it's not necessary. You don't have to believe any of it, visualize any of it, see any of it, sense any of it. If you practice the forms and techniques long enough, you just might sense those cosmological energies. But the basic idea is that really, using a Taoist outlook, and there's a lot of different schools of thought. Even within Taoism, there are different schools, and they'll focus on it in different ways and emphasize different parts of it. So you can look it up online or research it and see that there are several types of schools of thought on what the cosmology is and how things came about and how they began. I think it's important to know. I'll often pepper my form teaching with different cosmological connections, either with the form, with the physiology, because it does connect with the physiology. The body is a microcosm of the macrocosm. And these are different, the cosmologies are different ways of describing that body. And so it helps to expand your awareness when you tune into these cosmologies, which I highly recommend. Research them, look into the different ones, try them on for size. Some fit better than others. Don't have to buy it all, hook, line, and sinker, but see it as metaphorical, if you want to, as a metaphor for how the body works, how our emotions function, how our mind thinks and acts. There's a lot of these different types of connections within the cosmologies themselves. For instance, in the Taoist, the Tao Te Ching describes the whole process and goes, how everything started out as one and started to divide and became all these other things. And they've got different names for this oneness, this Tao, Wu Ji, the great emptiness. I don't like to use a lot of Chinese terms or foreign language terms when I talk to my students about this. I think it's important that they have a personal understanding of what I'm talking about. And sometimes if you don't study Chinese or whatever language it is that, from whatever system that you're using, that, people need to be able to relate to it. And a lot of people don't study Chinese and so forth, or those concepts. I've studied a lot of the Chinese words and terminology, so I'm familiar with it. But I don't think it's necessary. I think really it's just getting the basic idea of what it means and going from there. Anyway, the great one, the great field that we all are created from, divided. It started to, form itself into a singularity. That's what science would call it. And this singularity was made up of two forces, yin and yang. They call it the Tai Chi. The Tai Chi, each opposite side contained the seed of the opposite side. So the potential is always in fluid motion. It never stops. That's really the case now. We're that field, we're still in it. We're still one with it, but apparently in the big game, we have temporarily appear to be separate beings living in this field, and I've talked about that before. Anyway, the yin and yang break down further, and there's different stories and diagrams to how this happened. For instance, you have the paquas, which are the 8-sided images with the 8 trigrams. One's called pre-heavenly, one's called post-heavenly. Pre-heavenly is when everything is in a static form. It hadn't become dynamic yet. Post-heavenly is when everything started being active. The polarity started dancing around, and then we get nature, we get, the 5 elements, we get, all the changes that are happening all the time. And a lot of the Taoists work with these images and forms. You'll see them called the pakwas. They have a yin-yang in them, and then they'll have 8 different trigrams. Now the trigrams, again, it's a huge study in itself. It can take a lifetime to study it. There's a lot involved with it. But basically, it takes what are called the 64 hexagrams. Now the 64 hexagrams originate with the yin and yang. And the yin and yang is broken down and broken down and broken down into these 6 lines, either broken or fixed. You've got one line that's full or one line that's broken, and they've broke it down into 64 different 6-lined hexagrams. And these are a complete description of what's going on in the universe. Now, science is starting to find that that's actually true. Within the DNA, within the tetrahedral geometry of space, they're finding all of this is true. The Taoists were onto something here. They found it and mapped it. And these are maps, ways of breaking everything down and looking at it all the way down to, the physical body and the atoms and molecules and how they operate. It's really amazing what they've done. And if you really research it, I'm not going to go into detail here. It would take hours to go into it. But I'm going to give you the basic breakdown. Basically, everything broke down into those particular forms. The Dantian, the Dantians in the body, the meridians in the body. They're all connected with this whole system. It comes back to the basic yin and yang, how everything, the 2 forces are constantly at interplaying with each other, and then it spreads out from there. It multiplies. And as it's like our body. We start out with, the core, and then from there we bifurcate into different things, 20 fingers and toes. We lots of hairs, different separate hairs out on the, periphery. Everything breaks out into these forms in nature, and particularly the Taoists have mapped these particular, channels that everything ran into. So it's a way of doing it. And again, as I'm offering forms and ideas on this blog, I'll be peppering it with these different cosmological connections with it. Traditionally, that's how it was taught. Because it does connect with those energies. It gives you a better understanding, because if you can understand it from that level, it really opens up the channels for the energy to come through. It just really does. I can't explain it exactly in a left brain fashion how that works, but it really does work that way. Anyway, these different yin and yang energies eventually break down into the 5 forces, which is basically the 5 elements. Our 5 organs, main organs in the body, those have yin and yang in them too. There are yin organs and yang organs, and I'm not going to go into all of that and break them all down. But just to give you an idea, a lot of teachers will focus, like medical Qigong really gets into what's a yin organ, what's a yang organ, and how they relate to each other. That's when you want to get really detailed about particular practices and so forth. I usually teach a general overall tune-up type of Qigong, so you don't have to go to the medical Qigong doctor. You want to keep the body healthy. It's an overall. I recommend the teachings that I usually give are not individualized. They're really for everyone. Everyone can do them, most of them. I will individualize them if I'm working with a particular student, if they're working with me one-on-one, and maybe recommend a particular practice. But usually it's general foundational practices that I teach people, and they'll get some of these correspondences given with the teaching, and so they'll begin to, as they do the practice, understand why it's connected in that way, why it's described like that. Like for instance the 5 elements. Why metal? Why is metal one of the elements? You've got metal, earth, fire, wood, water. They use that as the 5 elements, and these 5 elements circulate. They run into each other. So we'll start with wood. Okay, wood, like the trees, grows, it expands, it's warm, it's expansive, it's green, right? It's connected with the liver. They'll connect it with the liver. Why? Because the liver has that warm, expanding action. There's a lot more to it. I'm just simplifying everything. Wood feeds fire. How do you feed a fire? You give it wood. It burns. A fire burns. Fire rises, gets hot, expands, connected with the heart. Warm heart. You want to have a warm heart. Fire in the heart. It's good to have a good fire in the heart. Not too much. You want to be balanced. But enough fire to give you that expansive, loving, uplifting, inspirational feeling. The fire dissolves the wood down into ashes, which becomes earth. And earth is balanced, calm. There's a clarity involved with it. Everything is settled. It's a holding pattern, but not totally static, just really balanced, clear. I would say there's a clarity involved with it, a smoothness. It's an evenness about earth. And that's usually associated with the stomach, the spleen, the pancreas. So each of these organs are feeding each other. So we've had the liver feeding the heart. We have the heart feeding or strengthening, generating, aiding the next organ in the line. There's a cycle to it. So we've got to the stomach, yellow, earth energy. The earth energy solidifies and begins to condense and become the metal element, which is a cool, contracting, dry energy. We get into the autumn. Each one is connected with a season. So there's a lot of correspondences here. I haven't mentioned them all. But as I go through the teachings, you'll get the correspondences and how they relate. So you get the metal element. Cool, contracting. The lungs are connected with this. The autumn. It contracts until it begins to condense. Water creates water. Now we're in the water element, the kidneys, the winter time, cold, falling energy that goes downward, it flows down, it finds the lowest place, seeks it. And then the cycle starts over again. The water waters the wood element, the tree, which feeds the fire, which creates ashes and earth, which condenses into metal, which condenses more and creates water, which feeds the tree. And there I've just described a cosmological cycle using the elements. Now they're all connected with the seasons also. Wood being springtime, the beginning. Fire being summer. It's hot in the summertime. Earth is Indian summer, right in between when things begin to balance out. And then you fall into autumn. The lungs, metal element. And then you go into winter. You bottom out at the winter time when things go to seed or go underground like water flowing down. Everything is being nourished in the yin at that point because winter's yin. Summer's yang. The equinoxes. When winter comes into spring, you have an equinox, equal night. It's equal night and day. The yin and yang are balanced. On one side in the springtime, on the other side it's balanced. The yang is going down into yin in the autumn. Cosmological significance of yin and yang. It's everywhere. It's in everything. I recommend really looking into it as much as you can to make your practice richer. Find those yin and yang places. Tune into them. Match your organ systems with that cycle. Your whole nervous system. the blood flowing through the body, everything coming into alignment with those cosmological significances. It's very, very important and very powerful. And I've just scratched the surface on some of them. There's a huge list of connections cosmologically with these different qis and energies that I'll be giving you some techniques that you could tune into. For instance, I can give you one right now. And I recommend this for everyone. And it's in my Inner Smile practice on my video, on my YouTube and Facebook page, Inner Smile, Jim Weaver. And different teachers teach it. I recommend Montauk Chia's, excellent. His is that's where I really got the main idea for, the main form of it. There are other teachers I've gotten it from with it where it was based on that. But the idea is basically, this is how I do it at sunrise, right before sunrise. It's right before the yin has popped into the yang, before the sun is fully active on the horizon. Get out there, do the 3 palms together, which I recommend, the Tibetan practice. It's on my YouTube and Facebook page, 3 palms together, an opening practice. And do the inner smile using the rising sun coming in through the third eye. And you basically look at the sun, and you can do this while the sun is on the horizon. Make sure it's on the horizon, no more than 45 degrees angles up from the edge of the horizon. You want to keep it really low in the sky if you're looking at the sun using your eyes. You don't want to burn your vision out. You want to be very careful. If it gets up too high and it gets uncomfortable, close your eyes. You can do it with eyes closed. Picture your forehead opening like a flower. You can use your palms. Drink in that sunlight. And we're using the sun as a symbol for that inner smile. The sun is always smiling and sending us light, expansive, warm, loving energy. Drink it in through the third eye. Drink it down. Fill up your organs with it. Smile into it. You really want to catch that early morning sun because the yin is switching over to yang. It's those yin and yang switching over times, like twilight times, sunrise, sunset, even noon and midnight. Powerful times because the yin yang, it's like an electrical circuit when it switches from yang to yin or from yin to yang. There's a hard to describe. It's like an electrical current that happens. Powerful times for practice. Watch that sunrise in the morning. Smile to it. Bring the sun in. Smile to it. If you do this practice, you're going to connect with all those traditions that venerated the sun on that level as a symbol of the higher self. Smiling energy, loving, unconditional light and love. You tune into that particular wavelength using the solar light. You don't have to use the sun. That light is all around us. The Taoists call it the cosmic particle or the human plane particle. It's in everything. But it's just using the sun, again, using cosmology to focus the energy. The sun itself, of course, does have a lot of other energies and is connected in a lot of different ways with different energy centers in the body, used in alchemy, alchemical formulas. There is the physical sun with the physical heat and fire. Then there's these other subtle levels of the sun behind it that you start to get in touch with and communicate with. We are connected intimately with the sun on that level, and I'll go further into these connections as we go, but I'm giving you a taste of it so that you can know it's always available to you. The sun is there every day. It rises every morning. It's the one thing you can count on. So use that trust and love to greet the sun every morning. Drink it in, gather it up, fill up your dantians. Drink it in. Let your cup overflow with that light and give it to everyone. Share it with everyone. That's what the sun does. Doesn't care who it is, good, bad, whatever. But that's one way of connecting with the cosmology of these energies and using Qigong to connect with them. And for myself, I developed a lot of my own connections, like, for instance, with the stars, the sun, of course, talked about the sun a little bit, the moon, same thing. There's different practices. They relate to different parts of the body more. Like, for instance, the sun relates more with the upper body, the heart, the third eye, the crown. You can connect it with the lower dantian and the lower centers too, in other systems, schools of thought, different forms. But mainly it's, in particularly the Taoist forms, connected with the upper chakras and the higher self. The moon connected with the lower dantian, the kidneys, the perineum, the bottom of the feet. So you'll see how the yin and yang is in the body. Sun is, in a lot of my the forms that I teach, we'll see the sun in front of us shining in through the forehead. We'll see the moon shining in through the sacrum, the perineum and the sacrum, the bottom of the feet, because it's connected with the earth, the yin energy. So you've got yin coming in from below, yang coming in from above. And we're mixing the energies. We're creating the alchemical, the third force out of the yin and yang, because that's what man is. Heaven, earth, heaven above, earth below, man and woman in between. We're the bridge between heaven and earth. We're here to bridge it. That's what we're here to do. We're building that bridge between heaven and earth. It's one way of looking at it. You don't have to believe any of that. I tell that to my students too. Don't believe anything I tell you. Do this practice. Go out and experience it yourself. Let me know what you think. It works. With connecting it with the physiology, you have the three major dantians in the body. The upper dantian in the center of the skull, the middle dantian in the heart center, right in the heart center, and the lower dantian beneath the navel. Now this is all deep inside the core of the body. It's not near the surface. You're going to see a lot of different teachings and schools of thought about this. Experiment. Find your dantians. Breathe inside. Go inside. Where's the focus in these three areas? And some practices and forms are going to naturally develop those areas. That's what it's about. Because they're in a potential form when you start. And then when you start doing the practices and focusing, it's going to concentrate those energies at those points. And you're going to build the cauldrons. You're going to strengthen the cauldrons and use them to hold energies and transform energies. Like an alchemist will be transforming energies in these cauldrons. Again, the 5 elements related to the 5 organs in the body. The meridians have yin and yang meridians. I'm not going to go into details. The main ones that are worked with, particularly when you're starting, are the one that runs down the front channel. You connect the tongue to the roof of the mouth. That connects the back channel and the front channel that runs down the front of the body through the perineum into the tailbone, and then up the back and around inside. This is inside the body. That's one of the main ones that are worked with. Usually you do what's called a microcosmic orbit, and you circulate the energy through this. You want to keep that channel open and connected. Tongue on the roof of the mouth connects the back channel with the front channel. Very important. Lao Gong points in the palms. We're absorbing and sending a lot of energy out through those centers. Fingertips too. You'll notice there are little chakras in them, but we don't need to worry about that too much. They'll start to open on their own. The bottom of the feet, the bubbling spring point, which is basically near the center of the foot, behind the ball of the foot. And you'll know once you start breathing through that point where it's located at. And you'll feel it, yourself breathing through your feet, through your legs, through your hands and arms, right into the bone marrow. And there's nothing quite like that feeling of soaking in that chi, and you'll know it when it happens. It's a fantastic feeling. Those are main points in the body that you'll work with. Of course, the lower dantian and underneath the navel. You want to find your lower dantian first. Locate it. Very important. Just breathe into it. You can develop qi in it just by breathing into the lower dantian, focusing on it. Where your focus goes, the qi will follow. The perineum, right at the bottom of the torso, a major energy gate called the yin gate of the body. There are Chinese terms for all of these. I don't use them with my students. I don't see any need to. It's got to adapt. We're in America. Here we are. I'm talking to Americans who speak English. The yin gate and the perineum, a major gate. Some say to totally relax it. Others say, to tense and relax. I tend to do both. Get the gate active, pumping that energy through the body. It's a major energy pump. The crown, of course, major energy gate in the body. And there's a couple of different gates at the top that we work with. The third eye, of course, a major gate. Heart center. Solar plexus. The navel. The pubic bone is a major center. All of these relate to the different energies in the universe, and you learn how they relate and how to use them to draw, attract, store, and cultivate energy. Laogong points, breathe through them. Picture them opening like flowers. Connect, communicate with your energy centers. Ask them to open for you. What does it feel like to be open? Feel it open. You'll enjoy it. It's a really, really good feeling to breathe through those points. Anyway, that's a short introduction to some cosmology and physiology and how they relate. Now, I'm going to go further into various practices. Like I gave you a clue about what we'll go into when you're watching the sunrise, and you can bring that light in and connect. I recommend it just by itself. Watch the sunrise. Get up before everyone else. When everything's quiet. And observe your breath. And come into a posture, upright. Sitting, doesn't matter. Standing. Well rooted to the earth. Connected. If you can't, it's best barefoot. If you can do it barefoot, that's best. Because you're connecting with the Mother Earth. We want to be in touch with the elements. Just watch the sunrise. You can do a 3 palms practice if you like, and I've got a video on that. Very simple opening practice. You can do your own opening. Connect with the universe. Connect with your spirit. Watch the sunrise. Drink it in. Turn it into an elixir in your saliva. Drink it with your saliva. Because the saliva in Qigong is very medicinal. Saliva absorbs qi very readily and very efficiently. So any qi you have coming in, mixing with the saliva, makes it a medicine. Swallow it down, and we'll go into more details about that. Drink your medicine. It's very good for you, and enjoy it. Anyway, I'll see you again, and I'm going to start getting into more details about various practices you can start off with and doing. I do have videos on 3 palms together, which I recommend for everyone as a beginning Qigong practice. It's a foundational practice that I give. Inner smile. Inner smile is the key to all the practices. You get inner smile down, you can do a lot. Grounding, rooting. I have a video on that also, on rooting. Eventually I'm going to have a video on tuning into the stars and drawing forth the energy from those sources. And thank you, and peace to you, and I will see you soon.